So a few years back, a buddy and I used to go out to the bars a lot. And often when we were there, I would see a woman that I was very attracted to and get stuck in this analysis paralysis mode, trying to determine what am I going to say to make the approach. I need to come up with this cool phrase. I need to come up with this really relevant and interesting and engaging sentence that is going to pull her in, and that way I can start the conversation off on a great foot, and you'd get all wrapped up in all of this. And then inevitably what would happen a lot of the times is that she would either stand there the whole night and no one would talk to her and I wouldn't talk to her, or some other guy would swoop in and get something accomplished way faster than me, and he would say something horrendously stupid, but it didn't matter because she would laugh her ass off and then they would have a great conversation anyways. And this would happen for an embarrassingly long period of time for me, where often you'd go to the bars, nothing would get accomplished, and then you go home later that night just pissed off that I just wasted all this time at the bars. The bars suck. Nothing gets accomplished there. You never talk to any women. Women don't want to even talk to you. This bars suck. And it was just ruining it for myself until you would just repeat it the next week and go back there and do the exact same thing. So eventually my buddy pulled me aside and was like, look, man, what you say really doesn't matter. It really does not matter what you say. All that matters is that you say something. Just get the conversation started. And he was totally right. Learning that enabled me to finally figure out, it took me way too long, but it finally enabled me to figure out that there is two kinds of communication. There's explicit and there's implicit. Explicit communication is the words themselves. It's the exact phrase that you're using towards that other person. Implicit communication is the emotions being expressed or the implied meaning behind those words. So, for example, let's say you're sitting in a park. You're on a bench and there's a stranger on the bench next to you. And the stranger turns to you and they say, "Fine weather we're having today." Like the stereotypical thing. The explicit communication is, "I think the weather today is fine." But the implicit communication, the implication behind their words is it's essentially them stating, "I would like to engage you in conversation." That's what's really going on. They're just implying that in a way that has plausible deniability. So they're not turning to you directly and saying, "Hello, stranger. I find you interesting and I'd like to engage you in conversation." You know, that would be more than a little bit strange and you'd be creeped out and you'd run away. But they're doing it in a way that it's being approached from a neutral standpoint. So if you do want to engage in conversation with them, it's totally cool. And if you don't, they'll get the message and it's totally cool as well. They were just, it's a very hands-off way. But the point is there is a strong implication that they are trying to start a conversation with you. What they're saying is just a neutral thing that doesn't really actually matter that much. Now, how does this apply to your dating life? Well, it's the exact same principle, actually. What you say doesn't matter. It's just the fact that something gets started. So, a lot of times with men that you see, you might want something to happen, but it's very hard. I can't say it's always very hard, but it's challenging to position yourself in such a way that a guy can make a more overt, direct move towards you. I mean, that would be great if it could happen, and it's the ideal, but it doesn't happen as often as most women would prefer. It's just not going to happen. It's nerve-wracking to talk to you. It's hard to approach you. It's hard for you to approach him, and it's hard for him to approach you. Just so happens that the onus is usually on him to come up to you, but it doesn't make it any easier. So what has to happen a lot of times is you kind of have to help him along. And so you can make the approach in a sense, but the way you make the approach is with a degree of plausible deniability, and you're communicating with him implicitly rather than explicitly. So you don't have to make the approach or put the onus on him to make an explicit approach saying, "I find you beautiful. Are you single?" Which is, it's very direct. Some guys can pull it off, but that's hard. A much better way is to just get something started, even if you're mentioning some offhanded thing about, I'm making an observation about something in the environment that we're both in together, and you're making a comment about something, but if a conversation gets started from it and it becomes an organic conversation, then so be it. So let's say, for example, you're in the grocery store and the cute guy is in the aisle with you, and you say something like, what do you know about agave? I've heard really big things about this stuff, but I've never tried it. I'm just not certain. Does it actually live up to the hype? And then he might say, I can't say I've really tried too much agave. I'm much more of a honey connoisseur myself. And then some stupid conversation starts from there. And as dumb as that approach is, it's really dumb. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the conversation got started, and then something organic's going to happen from there. It's very unlikely that you will even remember exactly what you stated. Even less likely that he's going to remember exactly what you stated to start the conversation with him. And this isn't you also, it's also not you just approaching him in a very overt, direct way, like, hi, I think you're really handsome, are you single? Which is that's a very direct, that's much more along the lines of, I'm communicating explicitly. This is pure implicit communication. There's a huge degree of plausible deniability attached, but it will lead to something. This also saves you from the hassle of trying to come up with, what am I going to say? Or how am I going to instigate things that he can state something to me? It kind of removes all of those expectations. It removes all of that pressure, and you can just make some observational comment. You can state something that's neutral. When you free yourself of the burden of having to come up with some fantastic, intriguing, interesting line, that's really what it is, a line. When you free yourself from that pressure, you can just create natural conversation. You can start something that's organic and that it'll flow. And the fact that you stated something at all to him, or he stated anything at all to you, is just the implied communication that I find you interesting or attractive or intriguing in some way, and I want to talk to you. So just remember that it doesn't matter what you say. The words themselves don't matter. The phrase really doesn't matter. The exact cool factor of what you're saying doesn't matter. All that matters is that you say something, because the message will still get across.